All right, Alina, do you mind going to the next slide? Before we hop into the Grant Writing 101 workshop, I did want to share an opportunity for another free training that the Food Bank has coming up. This is in person. It's a 2-day civic engagement training. Um, so it's going to be really engaging, really timely. There's so much happening politically right now. And I hear from a lot of folks the desire to know more about how politics work, more about how they can be an advocate for things, and just get that engagement going within their community. So they're going to be talking about things such as power mapping, also really thinking about how stories can lend to our work in advocacy and systems change, and also, of course, giving updates as best we can as things are unfolding in terms of anti-hunger and food systems policy updates. So we'll be sending out the slides at the end of the training. You'll have access to this. If you want to register, you'll use the QR code that you see here under the sign up header, and I can also pop that in the chat too. So I would encourage you to share that with folks you know, sign up to attend yourself. And we're excited to be offering this in addition to just trying to increase the amount of trainings for community, particularly that folks are sharing with us they're interested in. We want to build those things around what you all are interested in learning. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Alina, to lead us in the Grant Writing 101 workshop. Uh-oh, it seems like Alina might be frozen. Does she look frozen to other folks?
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me now?
We can hear
Sorry
you.
about that.
Back.
Claire and I are both at the food bank right now, but sometimes the internet is a little spotty. So apologies. If that happens again and I'm gone for too long, then Claire can just take over. Well, first of all, thank you all so much for being here. My name's Alina. I work closely with Claire on our partner grants team. So most of my grant experience is reading grants and reviewing them. And so, yeah, we'll just jump right in. If folks would like to share their name, your pronouns if you're comfortable, and the organization you're with, if you're with one, in the chat, just so we can kind of get an idea of who's here. And then we'll just jump right into the magic wand worksheet. So I emailed that to everybody. Hopefully you all saw it in advance. If not, Claire can pop it into the chat. And it's a fillable document, so we can just work on it together. So if you had a chance to fill it out in advance, that's excellent. If not, no worries. We'll take some time. We'll just go over each section together and then give you a couple minutes to fill yours out or update it or just review what you wrote. All right. And please stop me if you have questions as we're going along. If you want to use the raise hand function on Zoom, that works, or just unmute yourself and start talking. Because I'm screen sharing, so I can't see all of your faces at the same time. So just jump in. All right. So for section 1, in 1 to 3 sentences, summarize your project idea. What will you do? When will you do it? With whom? Where? And why? So in order to do what? We have an example here in case you need some ideas. So by October 2026, Literacy Volunteers of Arizona will train 50 new reading tutors to serve the rural communities of Southern Arizona. We will work with volunteers recruited from local churches to reduce the waiting list for literacy training in this underserved area. So that's just basically, just plug that into section 1. If you don't currently have a project or an organization you're working with, then you can make one up. But what would you like to be doing? So take a couple minutes and work on your magic wand, update that sheet, fill it out. We'll move on. Would anybody like to volunteer to read this piece for me? If you do, just come off mute.
Okay, wasn't crazy.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. Thanks, Monique.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
What is Magic Wand? I joined a little bit late.
Oh, no worries. Yeah. So Magic Wand is the main tool that we're working on today. It's a worksheet that it should be in the chat or in your email if you didn't receive.
I didn't get the email, and then the only thing I see in the chat is introductions for everyone, and then me asking Magic Wand.
Okay.
Trying to get it in the chat. It's not wanting to let me upload, but it will
Okay.
be there soon.
Okay.
Thanks
I
for your
would-
patience.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it's the tool that we're going to use for this workshop. It's a kind of a grant writing tool where it just helps you organize all your ideas, and then you can have that and just plug it into the grant proposal.
Mhm. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so basically an organizational tool.
So thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Monique, I just sent you over the copy in my email.
Thank you, Adam.
Okay, no volunteers.
I'll read.
I
Thank
can
you.
read.
Micah. Thank you.
Who are you as an organization and what are you all about? What is your mission or purpose and what do you want to achieve with your project?
All right. So this is, if you are with an organization, you should be able to find this on your organization's website. If you're not with an organization, this can be like, what kind of organization would you like to be with? Here is our example. Literacy Volunteers of Arizona is a 35-year-old volunteer-based 501c3 nonprofit whose mission is to empower adults with the ability to read and write to achieve their full potential as individuals, as employees, as parents, and as members of the community at large. Move on to section 3. Describe the specific need or issue in your community that this proposed project will address. Why do you think this is important? So this is a section where you're really kind of convincing the funder that this is an important project. Our example is, according to a 2015 survey by Literacy Volunteers of America, 1 out of 6 adults cannot read or write at the basic 6th grade level, leaving them vulnerable to problems with parenting, employment, health, safety, and self-esteem. In the rural counties of Southern Arizona alone, there is a waiting list of 200 adults who want to learn to read. You can go ahead and take a couple minutes for yours.
Cheryl, I'm so sorry you got cut off. Would you mind kindly sharing this example again?
Okay, then. What specific changes do you intend to achieve in your community as a result of your work or proposed project? What will success look like, i.e., reduced hunger, improved graduation rates, improved health outcomes, social awareness?
And Alina, while you're here,
Yep.
I can fill the
Thank
slides,
you,
but I'll
Claire.
throw it back to you.
Thanks for reading, Cheryl. So our example for this one, we said we would train and successfully match 50 new volunteers. At least 75% of students will complete 6 months of tutoring. Reading skills will improve an average of 2 grade levels. We'll form at least 3 significant partnerships with local churches. We will reduce the waiting list by at least 40 individuals. And the majority of participants will self-report an increase in confidence and knowledge. So you can see we have kind of a mixture of quantitative and qualitative metrics here, which can just help strengthen your case when you have different ways to measure. Most of them are quantitative. This number 6 was our qualitative. So participants are self-reporting an increase in confidence. That is super valuable and kind of the whole point of this, but that one's a little harder to measure. So it's good to capture those pieces too. Right.
Another note on that is that what we've seen in the grant giving world overall is that it used to be grantees really focused on like what is the quantitative data of everything. And in a way that makes sense because that's the most easily measurable. You can count how many participants you can have. You can count how many pounds of food you grow or how many pounds of food you give out. But there's definitely been a wave of recognition that the quality of programs, quality of services, all these things is just as important, even though it is harder to measure. So that qualitative data is worth really thinking about as you are developing your projects. And I recommend looking for grants too that express sort of that understanding of the importance of quantitative and qualitative and thinking about how actually this sort of overlaps with the civic engagement training, that piece of like, how do we tell the stories of impact within our work? So yes, sometimes they'll just be like, give us the hard numbers, but a lot of the times they really want a deeper dive too, which is a cool opportunity to share even more about the great work that you're doing.
All right, let's move on to section number 5. Did you all have enough time there? Okay. What are the major steps you will need to take to make these changes happen? You're kind of just laying out how you're going to achieve your goal. So we will need to contract with an experienced trainer who will train all these tutors to tutor folks. There's some training logistics. We'll need materials, we'll need a location, and we'll need some equipment. We'll need marketing to recruit potential volunteers and program participants. We'll need to conduct training for volunteer tutors, and we'll need to evaluate learner progress and program success. We'll probably use a pre-survey and a post-survey for that. So this, you can see this is kind of general. It can be more specific or this broad. It kind of depends on what grant you're applying for and what the funder is asking for. If you have a really fleshed out plan, then I think that's really great to include. The more detailed, the better.
Lily, can you go back real quick, please? I'm almost done. Thank you.
Yeah, feel free to let us know what feels like a good cadence of having enough time to jot down your thoughts on it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Does somebody else want to volunteer for this section?
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Who else has a vested interest in working with you as partners on this problem or opportunity? Who views it as an opportunity to improve the community? Example, local churches, schools, libraries, service club organizations, city or county governments, foundations, ...
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so this just shows if your project is important to the rest of the community. If there's somebody else who's out there already working on this, maybe you could team up. Other people could support your efforts. You could share resources. So it is not necessary, but it could strengthen your application if there are other folks who are also, if this is a problem that other people are interested in addressing. All right, section 7. What information, tools, data, etc., will you use to decide how well you met your goals? How will you measure your success or impact on the community? So we already kind of addressed this one, but this is the metrics. What metrics are you going to use? So our example, we will use a pre and a post reading level evaluation. We'll do informal interviews with program participants to seek their feedback on confidence and knowledge gained, in addition to what went well and what could be improved upon in the training. And then we'll have a training logs of volunteer tutors to see how many hours the tutors have spent tutoring folks. Does anyone have questions on this section? Okay, metrics are super important to make sure that you are able to measure if you're successful. So there are a bunch of other resources out there on metrics, specific metric resources. So if this part feels a little unclear, I think this is worth diving into a little bit deeper on your own time. Or you can ask us questions, we can talk about it too.
Claire? I have a question regarding the metrics that you would use. Suppose you write a grant that you don't have a formal partner, but you're okay. So let's say you start a food program where you're sharing recipes and helping people prepare more nutritious meals. And part of your goal is to reduce, say, blood pressure numbers or diabetes numbers. If you have someone who will come in and do those measurements for you, do they have to be included as a partner, or are they just stated that they're providing your metrics for you, say on a pre and post basis of your program?
Mhm. I would say in your planning, the more detailed you can be, the better. So you'll also have to take into account what kind of level of information is the application asking you for. I would say that it is always a good idea to show how formal partnerships are, or how much you have thought this out. So some grants will require you to have formal partners. They may have you sign a letter of collaboration or an MOU, some sort of like formal indication. But I think typically on an evaluation, it's enough to say, we'll be partnering with a healthcare professional. They'll be handling the data, especially with something like that. Medical records can be really sensitive.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I think showing as formally as you can that they will be handled in a way, that's HIPAA protected, all those different considerations would behoove you on the application. But if, sometimes a really great grant opportunity will come up and you'll find out about it at the last minute, and there's just not the time to piece all that together. I think just to the best of your ability to show kind of like that mental map for the project and how it's going to come together. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, good. Thanks. That's a great question, Cheryl. Thank you. Would anyone like to read section 8 for us?
I will.
Thanks, Nancy.
What resources do you need to do this work, such as skills, labor, equipment, training, supplies, services?
All right, so with our example, things we have thought about are pre and post reading level assessment forms. So really getting the take of the participants on, how their knowledge has increased over the time in the program. We also are going to need possibly to develop those forms. We may already have them existing. It might be something you make in-house. It might be something you put in your budget to have someone create that form. We're also, of course, going to need volunteers because this example project is based around volunteers trained to be reading tutors. So we're thinking about the recruitment, how to keep those volunteers, appreciate them, and then also how to log the work we're doing. You're all doing really important work, and I think the more that you can chronicle what you're doing, of course, without it being so intense that it's inhibiting you actually being able to do the work, it's always a good thing. We're also, of course, going to need books because this is a literacy project. So books at various reading levels, starting with beginner on through several different levels. We will need a location for the tutoring to happen. We also want to think about just basic needs for people, having refreshments and snacks. It's really hard to learn when you're hungry, so we want to make sure that people are coming in and are feeling comfortable. And then we also want to think about incentives for participation. Certainly, none of these are absolute. Sometimes a grant is only going to allow you a certain amount of money, and you might have to focus on, what's most essential to you. But it's really nice when you can incentivize participation, particularly because a lot of times our programs are catered towards helping those out who probably do have really limited time, limited income, maybe limited mobility, transportation, all of these things. So when we can be providing them something and also showing appreciation for their time, whether it be through gift cards, travel stipend, maybe arranging transportation, maybe just putting together a local gift, even, maybe like a thank you card. Thank you for participating. That's something that's incredibly low cost, but is very sentimental and can really make the difference there. So I'll give you all a minute or two to jot down your ideas for what resources you might need. All right, so section 9, I'll go ahead and read. It's the estimated total cost. So thinking about your project budget, if you had to pay for absolutely everything, how would this break down for you? In our example, we chose to go for a $20,000 grant. And here you should see, reflected what we were talking about in the last section for what resources are we going to need, right? Almost always our resources have a financial value to them. And so, these were picked arbitrarily, but just to give an example, we're thinking about kind of personnel, funding that we'll need for an experienced trainer. That'll be a really good investment because that trainer is going to be working with volunteers. So there will be kind of a ripple effect of capacity built through investing in the trainer. We also want to have tutoring materials, of course. So $850, probably mostly for books, and maybe some of the training for the volunteers. We want to think about rent, since we need a space to do the tutoring. Also thinking about those stipends for volunteers, and any way we might be able to show appreciation. So again, could be money, a gift card, could be a local gift, maybe it's just that thank you card, but showing your appreciation for those who make your project possible. Again, we have the refreshments and snacks on there. And then thinking about how we would like to be able to compensate participants for participating, and also thinking about the timeline for that and how you can incentivize also your participants helping you in evaluation, which is really important for you knowing, okay, what went well and what can we do better next time? And, what participant stories do they want to share? And also it could mean future funding for you, because you can take that feedback and demonstrate on applications that our project is built on the interests and the feedback and the values of those we are seeking to serve. So we're deciding to give gift cards to participants after the post-survey evaluation, just to incentivize sort of that final cap on the project, which is getting their feedback on how it went. So oh yes, Nancy.
Do you have any guidance for nonprofits? And by nonprofit, I mean, your 501c3 organizations, on how to get exemption status for sales tax. I've heard it's a difficult process, but can you offer any guidance on that?
Yes, that's a great question. So if you are an entity that has an IRS tax determination letter, you have your EIN, you've been determined tax exempt nonprofit from the IRS, technically you are tax exempt anywhere. Where it gets tricky is that where you would face those taxes on sales is at like any individual company, any individual shop. So it really depends on you working to communicate your tax exempt status with any place that you are purchasing from. One example is like, think of a big box hardware store. I started out at the food bank. I was a school garden coordinator, and so I needed to buy a lot of garden supplies. And the food bank itself actually works with this big box store to set up a nonprofit account. So I think usually, your big chain companies, they should have a mechanism for setting up a nonprofit account for you. What you need to do is provide them with your IRS tax determination letter that will give them all the information that they need to verify that you're exempt from taxes. And then when you make purchases with them, you want to remind them of that. Oh, I have a nonprofit account. Here's the information to look it up. There are plenty of smaller places. Say you're trying to get catering from a small local restaurant for an event. They probably don't have a nonprofit account, but I would do the same thing, work with them, say, is it possible for us to have taxes removed? Here's our IRS determination letter. And a lot of folks are willing to work with you. Even the food bank, we've been a nonprofit for 50 years. We still come across folks where, someone will be like, I'm sorry, I'm new here. I just don't know how to do it, or they don't have a system for that. But technically that is something that as a nonprofit, it's a privilege that you're entitled to. So yeah.
Okay, thank you for that information.
Yeah, I'd probably, if you're anticipating spending, if you can get a little bit of an early start on it, reach out to them, provide the letter. But that's a really good question, and definitely something that I've run into myself. All right, so I'll give you all a couple of minutes to jot down some estimated total cost for your project. And just to say too, if you don't have an exact project you're working on right now, this can also be, what is your dream? What is a project that you'd like to do in the future? Right, I'm going to move us along and also say, if you're not finished with this section, it's something that we're going to talk about more with budgeting. This is just sort of like a general shaping of like, how do we want to parcel out different funding, and you don't have to know the exact, exact number for any given thing on here, but just to have an idea of this is what we want to spend on and general percentage of the fund. Does anyone want to read the example for section 10? Or maybe, I think we have Alina back. Alina, do you want to read section 10? Welcome back.
Thank you. Sorry for all the difficulties. Okay, section 10. What broad categories of community needs or opportunities does your project address? In our example, we're addressing literacy and reading, easier navigation and understanding of society. Reading is kind of connected to everything in our society. You have to read signs, you have to read documents, yeah, for everything. Parenting skills, job and workplace skills, and adult education opportunities. So this section is kind of just the broad, like what does this community need fall under? What big category is this? And like you can see, we have several different categories. You don't have to, but if your project does kind of fall into a couple different areas, then you can list all of those. All right, welcome back, everybody. I think everyone is back from the breakout rooms. How did that go? Is that helpful? Awesome. Cool. Does anybody have any questions or anything they want to share with the larger group and workshop?
I have just if anyone has any like ideas or just anything on how to get frozen produce. I know that's not what everyone's here for, is to supplement, you know, what we're not able to get from y'all. But if anyone has an idea of who we can go to get some, that would be amazing.
And maybe from each group, one person could share that if if there's a need or an interest or just like what the general topic is. I'd be curious to know too within the group, kind of what are the things that you all are working on. So maybe one or both people from the breakout could just share briefly.
So for us, we belong to the Feeding America program through the Community Food Bank. And that allows us, we go to a Walmart and a natural grocer. That provides us with meats, breads, produce. And we kind of partner with Sister Jose's and another organization. And Sister Jose's has a Target that they go to. And we see a lot of those individual frozen meals that since they serve more people, they make meals for the ladies there. So they will give us those frozen meals and then that we give out. So that kind of, partnerships with other organizations is huge. And, you can look into the Feeding America program, the Food Reclaiming Project with Southern Arizona Food Bank. It's helped us. I mean, it's a huge thing for our organization and our food pantry to be able to be involved in that program.
Thanks, Sean, and great question, Monique. Who else would like to share about what they're working on?
Thank you.
Come off mute.
Does anyone have any ideas, any strategies for attracting volunteers? Benson, the community is very small, population of about 5,000. And we want to increase our food distribution, but to do that, we need more volunteers. So it kind of goes hand in hand. Does anyone have any strategies they'd like to share? Some success stories on how they gained additional volunteers?
It's a great question, and I'm curious. I'm waiting to hear ideas as well.
I can tell you that St. Vincent's and Safford, the way we gained 3, 4, 5 volunteers was when we developed like a special project. And I'll use this as an example. We did a back to school program where we opened it up to the community, where the kids, they brought an ID, they brought their parent, but they could pick out 5 tops, 3 pairs of pants, pair of shoes, and not that we're rich, don't get that impression, but we were lucky enough that we got money from the giving machine from the LDS church here. And so we were able to buy some brand new shoes, underwear, and underclothing. And so the kids could come pick out those, and we have a library so they could get a free book and they could pick out a jacket. And that brought parents in. And it also, when we started doing that, people in the church came up and said, hey, do you think you're going to need some help? How many kids is this going to be? What can I do? And we were able to keep 4 of those that came are still kind of coming. And it took a project. And I think for us, one thing when we have volunteers have to feel that they're valued. They
Right.
come to actually work. So if they just come to sit and visit, there's no belonging in that. But if they come and they say, wow, I made it through 3 bags. Well, you know what? I'll be back again because next week I want to see if I can get 4 bags of clothes done. Next week, I want to see if I can get this. I've got one volunteer. She will only come when there are big bags, 50-pound bags of flour, sugar, coffee, whatever, that needs to be put in smaller bags. That is her job. Don't touch it. That's what she comes for. And they have to feel that they have a purpose for being here. It has to be some kind of self-worth. So to just come and just spend some time means nothing. They have to have a purpose. That's
Thank
my
you.
thought.
And I would piggyback on that. Our volunteers are extremely dedicated, but they are more mature, so they will choose specific projects to work on. They may tell me, I will come and pack food boxes, but I will not be there for distribution. Or I can come in once a month or twice a month, but I can't come in every week. So we give them the flexibility to choose the programs that they would like to be on and the schedule that they would like to work. So I almost have teams that pack boxes and another team that distributes boxes and another team that does special projects. And then I've got a small group that I call them my ride or die. They are there with me no matter what. Yesterday, as an example, we were packing boxes for a school. We started at 11. Distribution was at 3. We then had an organization that we partner with that did a food drive for us. So this group went with me to the food drive. It was a challenge. So as the food was raised, each organization donated specifically for their organization. We had to weigh their food, and the winning organization got a check from the organization that was sponsoring us. So that was a team that had worked early that morning, and they were there with me until about 7 o'clock in the evening, and they
Wow.
didn't stop. And they were back this morning to unload all the food that was donated to us and put it in our pantry. So it just varies. And now they're reclaiming food. They've gone off so I can be in the meeting.
That's
So
awesome.
it's
What about the food bank? Do you have any tips on attracting new volunteers?
I'm happy to answer that. And did someone else have something to add? I thought I heard another voice in there.
I can
Go ahead,
add to
Sean.
it a little bit. Word of mouth. Just tell your friends, have their friends say, look, we're looking for volunteers. I have a friend and he works out with this lady and, you know, he mentioned, oh, you know, if you want to volunteer, my friend Sean's looking for volunteers. So now her and her husband come and help us. So, you know, just getting the word out, I think is major too. I mean, it's, you know, you said you're from Benson's, so word of mouth, just tell anyone and everyone you know, have them tell anyone and everyone they know, and so on and so forth. And maybe that helps too, you know. And, you know, I know people have to have a passion for the organization that they're volunteering for. So, you know,
Right.
if you can cultivate that passion and pass it on, hopefully that helps too.
Yeah, all great suggestions. I definitely echo what's been said. And I think in terms of cultivating that passion you're talking about, Sean, having, maybe just like a one pager that is an impact report on what you do, I think can be a really cool thing, word of mouth. Oh, here, let me show you what this organization is able to achieve with the help of their volunteers and dedicated community. So, social media is a great outlet for spreading that word, sharing your impact, seeking volunteers at the same time. I think it's cool to, word those asks in compelling ways too. Like, how would you like to help feed X number of community members? So on and so forth. Also, yeah, echoing having a plan, really having something set up for folks to do that will also help in recruitment because you can be more specific. At the food bank, we have a lot of different programs. So we have distribution, different packaging. We also have a community farm and a garden here on site, so we can pull in different people based on their interest. You can lead with, like what are kind of the skills you would build, what are the interests that are involved in the projects that you need volunteer help with. I would also say you could reach out to schools or like various clubs to say, hey, are there folks who need maybe volunteer hours, an internship, things like that. And maybe you have in a grant an opportunity to request funds to have someone be a volunteer recruiter, coordinator. Maybe you even have someone who wants to volunteer to help recruit other volunteers. But yeah, I think sharing the impact and then also, sharing the different ways to engage and knowing that folks do prefer to engage in different ways, and really like playing into those interests of, do you have a really extroverted person who wants to help? Maybe they could be your person who goes to table at events, for example, or maybe they're working in front of the line, and so on. So yeah, making sure that fit is good and you're showing appreciation, I think is good for retention. That's a great question. I think now we're going to turn to brainstorming a little bit more about the budgeting. So I'm going to bring up a different screen. Everyone's seeing?
Could you make it a little bigger, Claire?
Yes. And also, I'm in it first because I will let you know the example project we're working with. We're going to a different example project because we've already been thinking about that first literacy one and talked a bit about the numbers and stuff. Elena, do you want to describe the project or shall I?
Well, it looks like we have not erased it from our last workshop, so we need to erase all of those items.
Oh no! Nobody looked.
We did an in-person workshop last week and we just haven't updated our form yet. Sorry about that, everyone. Yeah, so Claire, I'm happy to start this part. So we thought that we could just go quickly through an example of a budget. Whatever grant you're applying for will probably have specifics about how they want their budget. So just be sure that you're following those instructions, making sure it's in the correct format. And if it doesn't have any specifics, then you're welcome to use our template. We'll send it out. It's attached to in the slides. And yeah, so making a budget, you just really think through all of the pieces that you'll need, all the items, including personnel and travel and stuff, which we kind of started to do in the Magic Wand worksheet. And then this one for like costs of items, you can just Google that if you don't know exactly. So you don't have to be an expert in any of this because you're starting a project. So yeah, just look it up and put that price in your budget. So like Claire said, we're gonna do a little bit of a different example. So this example project, you are working on a project to build a community garden at the local community center. There is a plot of land donated to you by the community center that is bare and unsecured. So there's no fence around it. There's nothing there. It's just a bare plot. You aim to engage youth in the community and foster multi-generational learning and gathering. So that's your project, making a garden. You have the space. So you don't have to pay for the space already. That's donated to you. And it's at a community center. So it seems like you have a lot. That's a good place to find volunteers and folks who are interested in this. So now let's just brainstorm like what items we might need for this. It's just an exercise in thinking through a project, and then we can just do the items and then we can work on the price later, because we all know how to Google things. So I think we don't have to do that as a group unless anybody wants to.
And maybe we'll just take 5 minutes for this. So we want to hear your voices. Please go ahead and come off mute. And anybody who's gardened at home or gardened for a project or even just I don't know, seen gardening on TV. What are some things that you would need to put this project together? And you can just popcorn around.
I did see soil on there.
Soil, great.
Yes.
But you probably also need like, containment, like either wood for building the containment gardens or some kind of material to build, plots within that garden.
Mhm.
Totally.
Hoses for watering,
Mhm.
fertilizers.
Tools, shovels and such.
Mhm.
Seeds or small plants, whatever they're called to, that you
Mhm.
cultivate to grow. I'm not a gardener.
Seedlings,
Baby
maybe?
plants.
Yeah. Let's see. What about some,
Seedlings, yay.
yeah, seedlings, yeah. Let's see, I'm gonna ask folks to glance again to, this is all great, and glance again to at the example for thinking about maybe some bigger equipment you might want. There's some seeds planted there, no pun intended, on some bigger equipment. And I can get some
Shovels and hose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe like an irrigation system even.
We're in the desert, some type of shade cloth so your plants don't burn.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
What about how are we gonna keep cute little animals from eating all of our produce that
Mhm.
we grow?
And sing.
And perfect. Let's see. What about we probably won't be doing much travel since this is a site-based project, but if we were to travel, what's an idea folks have of where we might want to go?
To a nursery to pick up some of those seedlings.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And if you're growing a lot, then, distribution to other food pantries or, selling it to restaurants. So traveling within your community to get those goods out there.
Mhm.
That's a great idea. And I'm gonna add in here, maybe you are asking for a coordinator to help facilitate that. Outside services are free, but they maybe we need to get a permit to put up the fence. Maybe we want like a safe handling permit to be able to do nutrition or taste tests at the farmer's market, for example. Anything else folks can think of that they want to add on this brainstorm?
What about some volunteer appreciation or volunteer? Yeah, like stipends or gifts or something to keep your volunteers coming.
Yeah.
If you're traveling, possibly reimbursement for gas.
Mhm. I'll add on there, maybe we're traveling to a gardening conference. And maybe we want that conference paid for.
What about a vehicle? What kind of vehicle is going to be used to pick up go to the nursery and such? Would it
Mhm.
require like van rental, for example, or does this organization already have a vehicle that can be used?
Yeah, definitely things to think of. So
Mhm.
maybe I'll do reimbursement for gas or family. Great. Well, we just put together a pretty comprehensive little budget for our project. I think this is a good example too of with your budget, but also entire applications. I would remind you all that you have so much knowledge. You are the experts on your work, and you also are working with other experts in community. Your participants are the experts too on what what challenges they're facing and what solutions they envision for that. So it doesn't have to be an isolated thing at all. In fact, I'd really encourage you to, maybe you make up your draft budget, ask folks for feedback on that, or take it to a team meeting or a community meeting and put it together as a group, as well as other elements of the application too, to make sure that, everything is remembered, everyone is included, you're really focusing on the right priorities for those you want to serve and so on. So great. Yeah, as Alina said, when you're doing this, the real thing, you would be looking for average prices on Google and so on. But I'm gonna bring us over to the PowerPoint again.
Claire, would you go back just for 1 second? I
Yeah.
just wanted to point out on this template, there's amount requested from this grant, and in that other column says total project budget from all funding sources. And so that's not necessary. You don't have to have other funding sources, but if you do, it can kind of strengthen your application to show that, you have funding covered for certain things. You're just requesting a little bit of funding to get the project finished or however it is. So if you do have multiple funding sources, then that can look good to include on your budget as well.
Mhm.
All right, thanks, Claire.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to go into grant tracking, timelines, deadlines, and reporting. So this, it's important to keep track of your deadlines always. And I think our best advice for this is just use whatever system you use in your daily life, in your work life or your home life. So don't start a new system for grant tracking just because chances are you might not be in the habit of using it yet. So number one, just read and reread the grant timeline from the funder. So make sure you know all of those dates, write them down in your calendar and stick to them, because that's a really disappointing and easy way to get disqualified for a grant that you worked hard on, is just missing a deadline. Maintain a schedule. So this is important or especially useful if you are applying for several grants at one time and they have different deadlines. Keep just to stay on top of it. You could use Excel or Google Sheets, whatever spreadsheet or tracking that you like to use, just to keep track of all the different grants. And calendar everything ahead of time so that nothing surprises you. This is all pretty basic. I'm sure you all know how to maintain deadlines and stay on top of it, but with grants, it's just so important to continue to do that, because you could really miss out on a big opportunity if you accidentally forgot a deadline and missed it. And then some other things that are important to mention. So some things that make an application really good. If it aligns with the funding goals or purpose. So make sure that your project and your organization, what you're working on, really aligns with the funder. That way, chances are higher of you getting funded and your missions kind of align. So make sure that it meets the criteria that's listed, answers all the questions, and follows the instructions. Those are, again, really basic. I'm sure you all know how to do those things, but they're super common mistakes that could get you disqualified from a grant. A good application is also authentic and compelling. So it's engaging, it has stories, it shares the why that your work is important. You want to really convince the funder, make it interesting for them to read, get them on your side. help them understand why this project is so important and needs to be funded. And the last piece, a good application is clear and realistic. So make sure you can measure your success. Make sure that you have a clear plan and a timeline that is reasonable. Make sure you know what you're trying to accomplish, you have support, etc. So just if you have a really beautiful dream, but it's actually not, you're not able to meet it in a reasonable time, then maybe scale it back and try and address just a piece of it so that you can measure it and so you can achieve it so that the funder believes in you and knows that there will be results in a reasonable time frame. Does anybody want to add any pieces from your experience of writing grants or getting grants that like really help strengthen your applications? I know you all have some experience here.
No, Frankie, how can I
I
help
do
you?
have a question. Like,
Yeah.
do you guys have any?
No, Frankie, how can I help you?
Sorry, I am sitting at the front desk, so if you hear it, it's because
That's okay.
yes. But do you guys have any suggestions on verbiage
No.
so that like verbiage to ensure that you get approved for funding? Because like recently here they're like we can't use the word swag because I guess that's not a good enough reason for funding. But do you guys have any suggestions or words you suggest avoiding or using or something? Anything?
I mean, I think it depends on the funder. It depends on the grant. But I would maybe steer, if you're going to use like acronyms, I would write them all out. Maybe be clear and professional, explain it like people don't know what you're talking about, because chances are they don't know your exact project. So just make it really clear, concise. I don't have a list of words that are like, don't use these words, but I think it just depends. What do you think, Claire?
Yeah,
Like overly explaining it is better than like not giving enough detail.
I would think so. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would generally agree with that, you know, within reason. But imagine like, you know, you're meeting someone for the first time and they're like, oh, Monique, your work sounds really cool, but I don't know anything about it. Like, tell me the who, what, when, where, why kind of thing. Since it does really depend, like by funder, I find that the most helpful thing for me is to like look around on their website and get an idea of like what is the kind of language that they are using. Is it more formal? Is it more casual? Do they use, you know, the word swag to describe goodies or whatever? And you know, I would say like try to mirror that. Maybe, you know, like thoughtfully mirror, so not like copying the exact words they use, but you know, maybe looking at like what's the mission and the vision of this funder and really asking yourself, how does our work intertwine with that? Maybe you have, you know, maybe is a word or two in their mission that you think, yeah, that really describes our project. Go ahead and use that word in the way that you describe it so that that like connection of values is apparent there. So I think that's the best way to do it since it does depend so much.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. Another great question. Go ahead, Nancy.
What is the public library's grant writing resources? Can you elaborate on what those resources are?
Yes.
On the second floor?
Yeah, we haven't actually talked about this slide yet. We just went.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Jumping
you're good.
ahead.
No worries. Yeah, so this slide is just some general grant resources that might be helpful. So it could be helpful to look at your local foundations that are in your area and, you know, see if they offer grants, because a lot of foundations and organizations want to support their community. So starting small, regional and local is helpful. You could also ask peers in your community, kind of like we did about volunteers in this group, ask folks if they have any recommendations or how they get funding. And then maybe you could look into those avenues as well. And then Nancy, the public library is a super good resource. The librarians are incredibly knowledgeable. At the main library in downtown Tucson, the second floor is like a grant resource area. So they also offer grant writing workshops similar to I haven't been to one of their workshops, but they offer them, I think, starting this month, monthly. So you can go to their website, the Pima County Library website, and search for like grant resources, or if you're not finding it on there, I can actually share that in the email after when I send the slides out.
Please.
And the librarians there are just so helpful. So you can always just email a librarian and ask if they have any grant resources.
Yeah, the library is particularly helpful in this like really quickly changing landscape in terms of at least like government grants and funding. So they are more likely, certainly more likely than we are here, to know sort of like what is available, what are the parameters around different grants, and so on. And they also can be really helpful in seeking grants and knowing like these are the avenues. I believe that they have a either a program or a subscription to a website that is usually you have to pay for, that you can utilize through the library to help search for different funding too.
Is that called Grant Watch? The Grant Watch program?
Yes, that's a big one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this slide, you do not have to take notes on this. We'll share it out. This is just some other grant resources that are maybe more specific, that are maybe good places for you all to start or to look and see if there's anything available to you. Yeah, like Claire mentioned, the federal grant landscape changes a lot and is currently it's hard to keep up with. And so checking some websites could be helpful, or reaching out to librarians. So we'll share this page so you can click around and check these links out. And then if you all have any ideas or suggestions to share with the group, you can email us and we'll share those out too. I think everybody would appreciate that.
I will also go ahead and plug that the food bank does have a grant funding opportunity coming up soon. Our communities grant, it will be open for applications from the 8th of this month, October, to the second Wednesday in December. We do have an info session for that as well. It's going to be happening tomorrow, and you can register for it on through the grants and loan opportunities page of the food bank's website. We'll have them both in English and Spanish, and feel free to spread the word. The Thriving Communities Grant in particular is looking to fund projects that strengthen the local food system. So think maybe like farming networks, cooperatives, things like that, building infrastructure to help the local farming community be able to increase capacity and distribution and access to local produce. We also are looking to fund community education projects around things like gardening, growing your own food, nutrition, and access to key services like you all are providing. And then the third priority is infrastructure and capacity building for our food distribution partners. So this grant is not the avenue for purchasing food, but it is the avenue for strengthening long-term capacity and ability to be serving the community and providing food. So you can think, maybe big things, fridges, freezers, things that you might need to have your pantry run smoothly in accordance with health code, all of these things. Maybe it's also a request for, like we were talking about before, someone to help manage volunteers, or a training for all staff, anything that would be in the realm of, being able to increase service to the community, increase, the methods of which you're doing that in a dignified way. That's a big thing of really having your neighbors who come to get food feel like they are represented in the food, they have choice, all are welcome, etc. So yes, if you're interested, please attend the Thriving Communities Grant info session and let folks know, consider it for yourself if that sounds like a good fit. And I know that a lot of you, of course, are already official partners with the food bank. And just to say that through that partnership really is our best pathway for providing food to folks. We're able to do bulk buying, we're able to share our donations, all of these things. That's the existence of that program is a big reason why we are able to focus on more of the long-term root cause or capacity building work through the Thriving Communities Grant. And so those funds are much better used towards other program necessities because we have that all those partnerships in the food buying power that we do. A dollar just goes a lot further for a large nonprofit than it does when you're going to your local grocery store. So we do know that food is in need and that folks are wanting more food. And we want to acknowledge that the Thriving Communities Grant is the best pathway for those capacity building things. Partnership with our food security team is the best pathway for getting food and so on. We also, like I mentioned, have a really great farm and garden team. If you're interested in any of those things, it's just one of many pathways that we have for particular needs for folks. So always feel free to reach out to your contact and ask if there are pathways you might not know about to get connected with other resources, education, and so on.
Thank you all so much for your time and your participation. I hope this was helpful. Does anybody have any last minute questions before we log off? Go ahead, Nancy.
Are you going to put the slides and the budget, sample budget or whatever in the chat session, or are you going to email that to us?
I can email it to you.
Okay.
And I will also email a short survey that we would love
Okay.
if you would fill out just about the workshop, if you have any feedback, ways to improve it for future workshop attendees.
Great.
Great. Well, thank you all so much. I hope you have a good rest of your Thursday.
Wait.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm
Go
so
ahead.
sorry. I was just this is a resource if anyone wants to use it. It's called Liquid Donate. I could put it in the chat, but it's basically a lot of donated inventory. They'll give it to nonprofits, obviously at no cost. It does depend because sometimes depending on what it is, they just ask you to pay the shipping fee. But I had someone who he's a board member for a nonprofit here and he utilizes that and he gets a lot of good stuff. So here's the link if anyone's interested.
Thanks, Monique.
Or wait,
Thank you.
wait, is that it? Wait, maybe I did the wrong one. Hold on. Wait. But yes, yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions before we hop off?
Oh, that is the wrong one. The second one is it, not the first one.
Okay.
I'm deleting it.
Thank you, Monique.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you all so much, and we wish you the best of luck in applying for grants, and we really appreciate the work that you all do in the community. It really makes a difference. Thank you.
Thank you for holding this session.
Yes, thank you.
Our pleasure.
We are having bingo tomorrow, yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes.
Bye.
Okay,
Bye.
take care.
Good to see you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.